I did it, guys. I've become the Fire Emblem Engage, and I have some thoughts.
Fire Emblem. Engage.
When the reviews came out for this game, there was a clear pattern. Engage is not as good as Three Houses. The day the embargo lifted, I kept seeing tweets from reviewers saying that. A lot of them cited rolling back on the Persona elements as the main reason. People were pointing out that reviews seemed to parallel Shin Megami Tensei 5. Most people came into the series through a game that had expanded social elements and were saddened by their removal. For SMT5, I don't think those were ever really in the mainline games. They were mostly in the Persona spin-offs. And Three Houses was the only Fire Emblem that ever went that hard into it. A lot of the reviews I saw read as, it's less like Persona, so it's worse. As someone who's a fan of modern Fire Emblem, I read those reviews and was expecting something on par with Three Houses, because I didn't need that expanded social element in this game. And what I got was a game that's better in some ways, but worse than others. There's very little in this game that I found to be a slight change in quality. It's pretty significant in both directions. Amongst fans, the story seems to be the most criticized part of the game because it's really bad. I don't remember the last time I was this checked out of a game story that I still beat. This is just the most Fire Emblem story ever. You're a dragon with amnesia, and the bad guys are trying to resurrect an evil dragon. It literally has the exact same opening hour as Awakening. Over the course of the game, there are 3 chapter chunks that are exactly the same. You go to a new continent and meet a royal and their retainers. You meet the crown prince or princess and their retainers. Then, oh no, the castle is under attack. We have to go save them. Nothing really happens until chapter 10. And then immediately after, you're back into that 3 chapter formula. And then in the last few chapters, the game remembers that they hired writers, and instead of, going back and sprinkling what they wrote throughout, they kind of just cram everything in. As a result, I was only really checked into small parts of the story over the course of 90 hours. In a lot of moments, my initial reaction was to make fun of how Aleer was reacting to things. A lot of the times, characters just came off as really childish. Not because they were acting naive or anything. Some do. The majority of the story just has a lot of childish logic to it. It feels like a kid playing with his toys and his dad's Fire Emblem figures. At least up until the last 15 hours where they finally decided to develop things. It just feels bad because the last game tried so much more. I'll give it a pass because it's clearly an anniversary game. The story isn't murdering the game's score. I still loved it. My only other big complaint is with the characters. Some of the designs are very loud, but the vast majority of the cast, I ended up preferring their street clothes over their actual designs. Everyone's already dunked on Aleer's. There's a small amount of designs I actually liked. The cast is fine. The only characters I really enjoyed were the Crown Royals. Alfred is the biggest homie. Diamond is a giga chad. Ivy feels like one of the only adults in the entire cast. And Tamara was fun to be around. There were other characters I liked. I found I wasn't getting as attached to this cast as I was for other games. Other than those complaints, I only really have a few nitpicks. I wish the camera could rotate during missions and zoom out more. There were times where movement was going completely off screen, or it was just being blocked by the stats bar at the bottom. Also, how come Fire Emblem just stopped being fully voiced? Especially around the base, there's a lot of weird choices to what is or isn't voiced, and that's it for the complaints. Everything else is a huge improvement. This game is graphically and technically a step up for the series. The only time I really noticed it lag was when there was a bunch of enemies on screen. Other than in those moments, it looks and runs better than all previous games. While exploring the base is cut down for this game, I personally believe it's for the better. In Three Houses, it got so long because there's so much to do. Here, it doesn't take nearly as long to do everything, and thanks to the game's structure, you're not going to miss out on too much if you ignore some of the things. Sami is great. I love that stupid dog thing. I gave him sunglasses. I found they greatly improved the supports. Like, they were really long in Three Houses. I didn't take that in until I replayed Awakening last year. Here, the C and B supports are pretty short. Some of the A's got kind of long, but I'll allow it because they're the final one. Those bonus battle things I'm blanking on the name on are a great addition. They give pretty good rewards for character building, and I can honestly see myself grinding these out a lot when I'm just looking for something to play. The main reason why I can see myself grinding those out is because this game is so fun to play. Gameplay wise, it's easily the best in the series from what I've played. The Emblemlings are simultaneously a love letter to the series and are mechanically deep. They summon in characters from older games to buff a unit. Lucina can do chain attacks and guard from attacks, much like the pair-up mechanic from Awakening. Gorn can alter the terrain using dragon veins, much like in Fates. Celica buffs magic at the cost of health because using magic in Ekyos requires the user to sacrifice some HP. Hell, she even has an ability called Echo where she can split an attack across 2 enemies. Every single time I got a new emblem, I was so excited to see what mechanics they would bring. Map design is actually a thing now. For the longest time, modern Fire Emblem has stuck with route the enemy or kill the commander. Those are still the main type of maps here, but there are other ones. The paralogs where you fight each emblem on a map from their game are amazing. For the Lucina one, I played that map exactly like how I played that chapter in Awakening, and it worked. There were some times where this being an anniversary game really pays off. Those paralogs and emblems bringing in mechanics from their own games are the best examples of it. I wish I was able to play the whole series to truly appreciate some of the aspects of this game. I really like this game's weapon system. I love what they did with the weapon triangle. If the attacker has the advantage, they break the other unit, making them unable to counterattack. My favorite additions were the heavy ones that could smash enemies. They do a lot of damage, move the enemy back 1 space, and they go last. How the game introduces these weapons are a great example of how this game has good game design. The first map you get them on, there's a guy right in front of you, standing on a tile that boosts his avoid, forcing you to use that weapon type to get him off. All over this game, I kept saying to myself, that's a neat mechanic. Especially with the super moves, I don't remember what they're called, that each emblem has. Dude, Warp Ragnarok, so much fun. The character building is the best it's ever been here. Between the emblem rings, the abilities that units can inherit from them, the stat buff rings, the class system, oh my god, it feels so good to see actual upgrades instead of what we got in Three Houses. There's a lot of ways to customize your character. Other than the class system returning to normal, I was very happy to see the map back. A lot of this game just feels like coming home. As a result, it's an excellent follow-up to Three Houses, but it falls short in the one aspect that Three Houses greatly improved on. It's fine. Story is only a very important motivator for some players. Three Houses' story isn't perfect, but I really enjoyed it. There was clearly a lot of effort that went into it that I can respect. I can't say the same here. Here's the beauty in what Engage fails in. I can just hit start and skip the cutscenes. The story is bringing down the game's score, but it's not doing too much damage because of that. Gameplay-wise, this is the best Fire Emblem I have ever played. I am going to be spending time building up my characters to absolutely mess up the DLC. Ultimately, I still love this game, and I'm going to be giving it an 8.75. With a halfway decent story, this game could have been a 9. If it somehow knocked it out of the park and was one of the best JRPG stories on Switch, easily a 10 out of 10. That's how good its gameplay is. Despite me not being invested into Alir's story at all, that one aspect was able to keep me hooked. I will grind out the post-game because it's so fun. I will replay the game, probably skipping all the dialogue. But because of the game's premise and story as a whole, I don't know if I would recommend it to anyone who hasn't played a Fire Emblem game before. Three Houses, despite being a worse representation of what the series is, doesn't rely on older games for its identity. Some of those games were never released outside of Japan anyways. But if you've played 1 or 2 Fire Emblem games in the past, or just have a general knowledge of the series, play Engage. It is one of the best tactics games I've ever played. So, were the reviewers right in saying this game is worse than Three Houses? Yes and no. In some aspects, it's significantly worse, and in some aspects, it's significantly better. It's a sidestep. Do you agree? Think I'm an idiot? Comment down below. Dislike the video if you think I am the emblem of bad opinions, and subscribe for more bad content. Follow me on other platforms if you want. Take care, guys.